Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're doing well. First video of the day, a good one. Preemptive like, what made Britain's 17-pounder so special? I'm not sure. Red Wrench Films. Let's find out. If you had asked me what tank this belonged to in World War II, I would have probably said Germany, which shows how little I know about World War II tanks. Let's go. Wait a second, but isn't that... Okay.
88mm. Germany had their fearsome 88mm guns.
Oh, wait.
Germany had their fearsome 88mm guns. America had the 90mm.
Wait, that was a German tank.
And the Soviets had the 100mm. The British had the 17-pounder, perhaps the best anti-tank gun of the entire war. But where did it come from? What sort of performance did it have? And did it really cost £17? In this short video, I'll tell you all about Britain's big cat killer.
Okay, so I'm doubly stupid. It's not even a tank. It's a tank killer.
We must first understand what came before. In 1935, Britain adopts the 2-pounder anti-tank gun into service. The name simply meant that the shell it...
Sorry guys, something popped up on the screen.
We must first understand what came before. In 1935, Britain adopts the 2-pounder anti-tank gun into service. The name simply meant that the shell it fired weighed 2 pounds, which is old artillery nomenclature. It was actually a 40mm gun. But it was clear even before the war started that the 2-pounder was going to be outclassed relatively soon, with it only being able to penetrate 40mm of armour at 1,000 yards. In 1938, development began on a larger gun, a 6-pounder, 57mm. It took the best part of 4 years to get this gun into service, and even before this had happened, concerns were raised. With the way German armour was increasing, even the new gun might struggle. So on May 15, 1941, the Ordnance Committee began work on a gun that would be able to go through 150mm of armour at 730 metres. They chose a 76.2mm gun, 3-inch, that fired a shell that weighed 7.7 kilograms, or around 17 pounds. And if you're trying to save your pounds this Black Friday... Sorry, that was embarrassing. I'll cut to the point. Very short sponsor message.
You guys you can fast forward if you want. I'm watching his video. Gonna make sure to go through his sponsor. If you do watch it with me and you're interested in getting it, make sure to use the promo codes and links. Original link top of the description.
Message incoming. Raycons are offering an insane deal this Black Friday, which by my calculations is this time next week. You guys will be able to get a massive 30% off across their entire catalogue. I've been using their everyday earbuds every day since they sent me a pair for the MiG vs Sabre video a couple of months ago, and they're great. 32-hour battery life, multi-point connectivity, and active noise cancelling. I've been travelling a lot recently with my 9-to-5 job, and they're great for a long flight, busy trains, or annoying co-workers. The new quick charge feature allows 10 minutes of charge to give you 90 minutes of battery life, and they include loads of different tips to make sure they'll fit comfortably, even in weirdly shaped ears like mine. They're already an incredible deal, but go to buyraycon.com/RWF today to get up to 30% off site-wide and help support the channel. You'll be annoyed you didn't get a pair sooner, and if you don't love them for whatever reason, there's a 30-day happiness guarantee. Cheers. But anyway, the 17-pounder. 2 experimental guns were ready by September 1942. The Mark I was a towed anti-tank gun, and the Mark II was for putting in tanks. Good thinking. And it was a good gun, launching 17-pound shells at 900 meters per second and slicing through 150mm of armour at nearly 1,000 meters. Incredibly impressive.
That ought to give them something to think about.
But there was a problem. They hadn't yet designed a carriage of armour at nearly 1,000.
So guys, all of these, I'm not sure, it's probably going to explode inside the tank, but if you're in the tank and all of this debris here hits you, you know, you're probably dead as well, right?
Incredibly impressive.
That ought to give them something to think about.
But there was a problem. They hadn't yet designed a carriage, or a tank, to put them into, and the 3-ton gun couldn't exactly be shoulder fired. However, the Nazis weren't about to wait for them. because in late 1942, in the Tunisian desert, British troops came up against tigers for the first time. A solution was needed yesterday, and they sort of had one. The first 100 guns, at this point codenamed Pheasants, were mounted to the carriages of 25-pounder artillery pieces and dubbed the 17 25-pounder gun, being rushed to North Africa for February 1943. And this gun was an absolute monster.
Obviously, war is horrible and terrifying, but what's so fascinating and kind of cool is that, I mean, war is the ultimate kind of, I don't know if sport's the right word, but like everything goes into it, and it's so fascinating to see when like entire countries are all in on this effort. It's fascinating to see just how fast things evolve. Of like, oh, we can't shoot through this tank. All right, let's make a more penetrative round. Hey, there's a more penetrative round by the enemy. They can shoot our tanks. Okay, let's thicken our tanks. Hey, we can't shoot through them now. Like. The constant evolution is so fascinating.
1943, and this gun was an absolute monster. It could punch clean through the 100mm frontal armour of a Tiger at distances of up to 2,000 metres away, with it being accurate to about 20cm at a 1,000-metre range. Its high muzzle velocity made it easy to lead moving targets and more forgiving to slight range miscalculations. However, the gun weighed 3 tons. It was incredibly difficult for a gun team to move it around, and it's no accident that development of the vehicle-mounted version started almost immediately. They just needed a vehicle to put it in. This was, for now, the A30 Challenger. So handsome. At this point in the war, the race was on to get 17-pounder equipped vehicles ready for the Normandy landings. The Challenger was not really on track and had a lot of issues, so the British stuck the guns into American M10 tank destroyers and called them the 17-pounder SP Achilles. Nice. Work was also ongoing on putting it backwards into the Valentine. This one was the Archer. But as early as September 1943, there was a strange man in a shed working on sticking the massive 17-pounder gun into the turret of a Sherman. W.G.K. Kilbourne, the maniac in question, first had to design an entirely new recoil system, as 1 meter recoil length was far too long. He also turned it onto its side to allow it to be loaded from the left. Obviously, no space for a radio anymore, so that got shoved into an...
It's like holding your gun like this.
Armoured from the left. Obviously no space for a radio anymore, so that got shoved into an armoured box welded to the back. It wasn't balanced, so Kilbourne simply designed a new barrel which had more weight towards the back. The single hatch on the roof would have been a problem, as all the turret crew would have had to struggle past the massive gun, so they just simply cut another one into the roof. They also removed the hull gunner to instead stick more 17-pound shells into his position. He'd done it. It was weird, awkward, and hard to use, but it worked. The Sherman Firefly was born. Fireflies and Challengers would operate alongside regular Shermans and Cromwells in Europe, usually operating 3 75mm armed tanks with 1 17-pounder in each troop of 4. The 17-pounders' anti-infantry capabilities were lacking, with lackluster HE rounds.
So I would assume that the normal tanks would kind of be in a triangle formation in the front, with these tanks in the back forming like a diamond shape with the 17, this one in the back, and so that the Shermans are making their way forward, but if they encounter something like a Tiger, then they'll allow this guy to come up and then shoot at him.
The 17-pounders' anti-infantry capabilities were lacking, with lackluster HE rounds and no hull machine gun.
I'm completely pulling that out of my arse, by the way. Like, I'm just imagining how it might work.
The infantry capabilities were lacking, with lackluster HE rounds and no hull machine gun, but luckily the 75mm were excellent at that job. As a priority target for enemy tanks, many Firefly crews tried to hide their gun barrels, leading to this iconic and eye-catching camo. In Normandy, Firefly and Challenger crews also got their hands on APDS rounds, discarding sabots. If you've not seen my video on them, these fire smaller projectiles much faster, allowing them to defeat significantly more armour once they reach their targets. However, the Firefly couldn't hit anything with them. For some reason, the discarding of the sabot pedals had a disastrous effect on accuracy with a 17-pounder. Yes, it could penetrate 230mm of armour at 1,000
What's
meters.
the point if you can't
could
hit
you
it?
get it on target? British documentation suggests you'd miss a Panther turret
Is it because they're just less aerodynamic?
50% of the time with a British documentation suggests you'd miss a Panther turret 50% of the time with APDS at only 400 yards away. At 600 yards, this falls to 33%. At 800 yards, it's 20%. The Americans fired 18 rounds at a 6 feet by 6 feet target at 1,000 yards and failed to hit even one shot. Safe to say the tanks should close the distance to about 300 yards before firing at anything.
It's easier said
The
than done.
A-34 Comet entered service in December 1944, but contrary to popular belief, this tank is not armed with a 17-pounder gun. This is a weapon known as the 77mm High Velocity, or HV. It used the same muzzle brake and fired the same projectiles, but used a much smaller casing to allow the gun to be significantly smaller and lighter, much more sensible. This gave the 77mm HV a muzzle velocity of around 800 meters a second instead of 900 meters a second, and the armor penetration decreased slightly as a result. However, whatever aerodynamic hijinks was going on with the 17-pounder sabot shells did not extend to the 77mm HV's sabots, so it was a much more accurate gun when firing APDS. The 17-pounder went on
So was that sacrificing penetrative power for accuracy?
to be mounted in the A43 Black Prince, which was rubbish, the Centurion Mark 1 and 2, which were excellent, and the AC4, which was Australian, before being largely replaced in British service by the 20-pounder gun. In
Which was
conclusion, the
Australian.
17-pounder was a phenomenal artillery piece with incredible
Excuse me.
performance. It worked as a towed anti-tank gun if you didn't have to move it too often, and performed excellently as a tank gun as long as you were willing to sacrifice ergonomics and anti-infantry performance. And of course, don't fire APDS until you can see the whites of their eyes. I hope you enjoyed this slightly shorter, slightly sillier video. Tried to stay informative while allowing myself to have a little bit of fun. If you did enjoy, please do hit the like button and please consider subscribing, commenting down below if you've any ideas for future videos. As always, thank you so much to my Patreon members, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
It's a great video. I enjoyed that a lot. Was very confused, especially in the beginning. I thought I was learning about a tank, and then I thought that this was their tank. I thought it looked German. Turns out it was. Yeah, really interesting. I love seeing the evolution of the survival of the fittest. It's the back and forth evolution of ammunition from defender to offender, of just trying to one up the other person. I think it's one of the big reasons we have a lot of our main technology today is because there's nothing more inducive to technological growth and innovation than a war. So, yeah, very interesting. Love y'all. Would appreciate any comments down below. Anything I said incorrect, call me out. Answering any of my questions. You guys are always awesome. Hopefully I'll see you guys next time. We'll keep on learning. Bye, guys.